achieve by putting together the COP work. So now I will give you a brief rules, so to say, in terms of how we are going to engage in the process, or rather in the session. So you are encouraged to drop your comments as well as questions as the speakers are presenting on the different components on the chat. You are also please asked to ensure that all your mics are muted at all times, just to ensure that there are no interruptions in the flow of the session. And then when we have allocation for Q&A, you can then unmute when that time or the slot we are in that. And then for now, I will hand over to my colleague viewer to give you the presentation of a few slides on the survey that we conducted as we're preparing for the work. Over to you, viewer.
Thank you so much, Nolthando. Greetings to everyone in the call. Let me just quickly share my screen. All right, team. For starters, I think I'd like to give a shout out or a big thank you to everyone who participated in answering the survey that we published out. Thank you so much. This was helpful. And the reason, honestly, of us sort of bringing back the responses that you guys provided to us is just to have a sense check of the survey findings and sort of also gain like an additional understanding of if this is something that everyone is interested in, or if there's more things that we should be considering in our upcoming CoPs that will be following. We'll share the dates soon. So I will not really take too much time with going into every detail of it. I'm just going to give you highlights of the insights that we've gathered from the survey. And then at the end of, or in the chat, you can drop in more ideas that you think would be valuable for the CoP going forward. Yeah. And so when we rolled out the survey, we sort of asked people what their goals were, if they had any experience into the MERL tech sort of world. And it was quite interesting to see that most of them actually, like most of us in the call, or rather most of the people, participants in the survey said that they were MERL officers, MERL students, specialists, researchers, and there was quite a large number again of managers and department heads or CEOs and a few other consultants, and also just a small number of different people who are outside of the MERL tech space that we all are interested in. And this just again indicates that most of us are well experienced or somewhat have some experience in the MERL tech world. And this is just goes to show that this CoP could really gain more and more of interesting insights and us sharing knowledge, which is something that came up quite a bit when we were asking what the understanding of the CoP is. It was just most of the responses were around coming together, sharing interests or experiences, knowledge that we from our own personal backgrounds have gathered, and we'd like to come together and share that. It's also just to improve practical and personal skills, and also to improve the the practice as a whole, because the more we engage, the more we can see how to further enhance or better the practice in Africa or in large. We also got some responses talking to promoting collective action, networking, and generating new lines of communication or new partnerships, creating knowledge through engagements, and also supporting each other or having a reference team where you can go back and always just ask how to problem solve for certain things. Again, when we asked what the expectation was from the CoP, most of you did really talk to learning from the MERL space, contributing your own skills, learning relevant tools and technologies to use. Again, another one that came up again is the growing of the network, improving skills and improving the knowledge or the practice as a whole. There was quite other interesting ones like exposure to new opportunities. Again, I think somehow what ties to the growing of the networks, I think this is a very great space for us to sort of bounce off from each other, but also form relationships or take from each other and break into our own personal experiences or own personal backgrounds. When we are asked you what information or resources that you could contribute to the CoP, we had a lot of experience or knowledge, also MERL tech related materials, which we would be talking to very soon in the CoP, as well as your experiences on technological and digital tools, and so on, ideas and participation. Some also offered to facilitate some of these sessions. We will be reaching out to some of these people, and please do just engage or flag in the group if you also want to be part of the facilitation of these sessions. And of course, we did ask how would you like to be communicated for every CoP. Most of you did say you would like to be communicated through via email. If that's still the case, please do share email addresses in the chat, or we will be sharing like a link to sort of gain more participations, or also just take from the registration link that you guys entered this meeting from. Nolitanda, am I still good in time? Okay, and then
you can wrap up, Viwe.
Okay, cool. And when we asked what tech-enabled discussions or what's the topics that you're interested in, most popular responses were around software and tech tools, the future of MERL tech, M&E fundamentals and tools and data collection. What was popular again was around latest tech innovations in M&E, databases, small and big data, open source, M&E visualization. List popular was digital reporting and dashboards, data sciences, safeguarding personal information. And what we really did not get from your responses was artificial intelligence, drones, storytelling with tech, and most of you said all, some of you said all, which is, I'm assuming you're just interested in what it is that the CoP was willing to take notice of. We asked at the end if there would be anything that you would be interested in seeing with this CoP. There were some suggestions like ongoing engagements, face-to-face interactions, and so forth. As much as we are committed to try and meet your expectations, we do want to flag that we will consider some of these requests, but we will not commit to all of them. And this will be an ongoing discussion between the partners with SAMEA. I think this is where I will end. Thank you so much, Nolitando. Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Viwe, for that. And as he has said, we will do our best as we continue with the work to make sure that we respond to the needs that you have communicated on the survey. Now, I'll hand over to Oscar from SAMEA for just 3 minutes to give us an overview of SAMEA work and his expertise. Over to you, Oscar. You're on mute.
There you go. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Özgür Biku. I am a current board member of the South African Monitoring and Evaluation Association, and we're quite thrilled to have this very first MERL Tech CoP in partnership with Data Innovators. and it's been a long time coming. I think over the last 3 or 4 conferences, we've had quite great attendance in terms of our MERL tech sort of and data visualization streams in previous CoPs. So I'm just going to provide an overview of who we are. We are an association of a voluntary association of professionals called a VOPE, and we actually have quite a long history. We just started our network in 2002, and we've been going ever since since then as a network, with our official launch taking place in 2005. And some of our sort of achievements to date has been our existence for 18 years, and that we've consistently held conferences every 2 years. So far we've held 18 conferences to date. And also in recent times, we've increased our board member capacity to 13 and 3 secretarial staff, and that's all with the support of our members and attendance of members to our different conferences as well. And in 2021, one of the things we were most proud of is that we were able to host the first evaluation hackathon on the continent, which has brought many interesting things out of it in terms of frameworks and further research and so on. And what we've also found over recent times is that our membership has been consistently growing. So who are we really? We are a monitoring and evaluation association that strives to position monitoring and evaluation in such a way that it contributes to an equitable and sustainable development in South Africa and more widely. And we aim to cultivate a vibrant community that supports, guides, and strengthens M&E as an important discipline and instrument for equitable and sustainable development. I'm going to skip ahead to a few things. Let me just move this down. So some of our objectives are really to provide a platform for interaction and information sharing amongst all those interested in M&E, and this CoP is an example of that. We also aim to promote high quality intellectual, ethical, and professional standards in M&E, and to increase the use of M&E theory and practice. We like to factor in context in the work that we promote as SAMEA, and promote the education and training of postgraduate professional qualifications in M&E. We also would like to elevate the profile of South African M&E nationally and internationally, and keep up to date with the latest trends in M&E, as well as be a resource for M&E in South Africa. So my slide deck is quite long, and I know we want to sort of move into the rest of the agenda, but I think what's key is just so you know who our board is. Currently, we're chaired by our chairperson is Tikwiza Silibonde, and as you can see, there's a picture of the rest of our board. But I would say that what is key for you to understand about SAMEA is that we regularly host webinars. We have a quarterly newsletter, and we engage in annual capacity building workshops as well as conferences and hackathons. And we have programs to support the emerging evaluators as well, and regularly conduct communities of practice and topical interest groups as well. And just for your information in terms of what some of the things we're thinking about this year in terms of hosting, operational themes include M&E addressing systemic crisis, M&E in response to addressing systemic crises, looking at adaptive management, as well as made in Africa evaluation. I'll take the one that you are attending today, as well as investing in impact and M&E and capacity building for EEs, which stands for emerging evaluators. So some of our cross-cutting areas are partnerships and fundraising, research and knowledge production, as well as operations and governance and membership and communication. Those are the sort of cross-cutting themes for the board. So keep an eye out on our website. We will update you with regards to our other thematic areas as well. But we're looking forward to engaging with you further in this community of practice. I'll stop there and hand over back to Nolutando.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Oscar. It's lovely on my side just to have a side of some of SAMEA's successes. Great. We'll move to the next agenda, which is the main topic, our guest speaker. John, I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself for the people to get to know your background and then hit on the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. My name is John Akwete, and I'm currently a PhD student at the Evaluation Center at Western Michigan University. And I'm here in the US, and I do more of like a generalist evaluation. So I evaluate systems, policy, program structures, and my interest mostly is in the area of ethics, technology, race, intersectionality, privacy, healthcare, and a bit more of migration issues within the evaluation sectors. So before I get started, normally we do land acknowledgement. So I'd like to acknowledge that the Western Michigan, where I am currently, is located on land historically occupied by Ijawa, Odawa, and Boduwami nations. So as we from Africa, it's important that we acknowledge some of our ancestral lands that they've left for us. So today's section, I would like to share some of the insights that emerged from an African MERL tech scan that was conducted in 2020 by a group of researchers and authors, including myself, Jorisha, Linda Roftry, Masego, and others who have also joined us on the call today. So the most important significant demographic trend affecting the African continent today, it's more of a rapid population growth. This comes with its own positivity and also an advantage from afar. But looking at the birth rate, we've seen that it will continue to rise looking into the foreseeable future. So this trend brings with itself changes within that requires Africa to urbanize and also transform its economy and also expand within its capacity to be able to serve some of these population increases. And we've seen the digital ecosystem within today's African continent that the path is changing, moving into the future. And we've overseen that over the past few decades, over the past few years, there's been a huge digital transformation that has been taking place within the African continent. Though each of the countries has its own path, changes continuously coming from a different rate at which, for now, we've seen that the changes hadn't been that clear, but some of the countries are leading others, and others are also following up. So through the African continent, we've seen that there's been a growing trend within the MERL tech, and also from investment perspective, I can say that in 2018, the African Development Bank had projected that before we reach 2020, which currently we're in 2023, about 130 to $170 billion is needed to be invested in order to gain total electrifications. And being within the MERL sector, we know how important electrification is to the development of these sectors. Even people who are on the field, who are using technology, they need electrifications, and within the communities and all those things. So looking at what the World Bank has also done in 2020 up until 2021, they've invested about $1.6 million across in order to build capacity within the MERL sectors and within the MERL ecosystem. So in 2022, as I said earlier on, a group of researchers and authors came together, which was funded by the MasterCard Foundation, to conduct a landscape across 7 African countries with the objective of understanding the breadth of technology-enabled solutions, both well-established and emerging, currently being developed and applied to support a better MERL, and also about data collections and also development across within these African countries. And the focus of these 7 countries within Africa, it's basically encouraged by the strategy that MasterCard Foundation decided to adopt in these countries. So our focus, or my focus with this presentation, is the finding that emerges from this landscape that we conducted. And the method that we use within this landscape is we use the Agile systematic review method. which consists of a wide sweep, data review, and prioritization. It's also a case study and interview that was conducted within this period. So the purpose, what we did was that we used a purposeful search of MERL tech solutions, initiative and partnerships that align with basically some priority areas. We looked at finance, democratic and governance. We looked at education. But in all, what emerged highest was that in the healthcare sector, we saw a lot of technology within those operational areas, and followed by agric. And also the least was in the area of security issues. And the stages at which these technologies were operating, some were in their implementation stage, others were in their maturity stage, while the least was in the area of concept and planning stages. So from the strategic areas, we focus on the youth and community-based approaches, indigenous way of thinking. Also an area that we also looked at was an aid in rapid decision-making, and also closing of analysis to action gap, and also future-proof within these particular areas. You can see that in all, we conducted about 233 wide sweep, about 148 were reviewed list across. And Nigeria had some of the highest distributions where we come across, and Ethiopia also had some. This graph shows some of the wide distributions of the partners, initiative, and solutions. So whilst we were doing that, I recently realized that South Africa too, they were conducting, the University of Johannesburg was also conducting similar landscape within the South African country. And this was so fascinating because some of their findings was purely aligned with what we also came across when we looked at these 7 countries. For example, you can see that within the sector that has the highest number of emerging technology, within there, you can see the healthcare and social work top it all. You can also see that the patent, the Excel sheet here shows the patent number that has risen so much when it comes to medicine and pharmacy. So the health sector is leading in all of some of these technologies that are emerging within the African continent, particularly here in the area of South Africa. These are some of the data that was extracted by the team that worked from the University of South Africa with a funding from some of the UK and also some of the National Research Foundation in South Africa. So based on the MasterCard Foundation strategy and what we actually focus on, we looked at equity and inclusion. Under that equity and inclusion, we zoom in on underrepresentation of women. These were some of what we find out. And also there was vulnerability and also the marginalized group access to technology. And what we find is that some of this technology were shaped in a way that could solve problem of some of these marginalized group within the development of this technology. We also look at the digital common goods and also open source data or open source softwares or technology within this area. The second focus was youth and community development or empowerment. So what we found out that some of these developers, not just a recipient, but they are also part of the development process. So you can see from these 7 African countries that even though we know WhatsApp, we know other technologies that are being brought into the continent and being used, we can see some of the vibrantness of some of these youth also creating their own form of technology, developing some of this system to be able to gather data, analyze those data, and also send feedback within those particular loops. And we also saw a lot of community ownership of some of this technology that have been developed. And we also noticed some form of partnership that took place within this area. And the third aspect of which we focus on was indigenous knowledge and practice. Our findings didn't come out with a lot of information in the area of indigenous knowledge, even though there were quite a few numbers that we came across whilst we were conducting this research about how our old indigenous knowledge can be used to come out with a new technology, can be able to do those changes. We came across quite minimal number of technologies that are being used within those areas. So these are some of the challenges that those technologies that we came across were meant to solve. Some of them were looking at how male practitioners, and also we were also looking at some of the challenges of development practitioners, and also communities and individuals' use of this technology. So those who were conducting or developing this technology, these were the challenges that they want to solve. These were the issues within their own areas of objective or mission or visions of each one of them that they wanted to look at and solve within these particular countries that we scan. So I'm excited to say that Linda is on call with us. So these are some of the trends, the wave that have taken place over the few years. So the shift in technology and the influence of development and the MERL sector led to the formation of the new sector, which we all now know as called the MERL tech sector. And this MERL tech sector was actually started by Linda Roughtry with some of his group around 16 years ago. So as we analyze the strategy around African and the MERL tech scene, it's important to keep in mind that this nascent within the wider landscape is very important, and also the range of authors that have already experimental and also learned some lessons to accelerate the progress that we've seen. And we've seen that there's been a wave, the first wave, the second wave, and currently we are within the third wave based on each of the African countries that I said earlier on. The pace of change differs. So we still see some of the countries that are still within the first wave trying to move into the second wave. Others are in the second wave trying to move into the third wave. Even others are within the third wave trying to compete with the developed countries within the moving across the third wave, looking at artificial intelligence, looking at other machine learning tools, and looking at like very, very advanced systems of technology that are being used within the spectrum of how to gather data, how to analyze those data, how to make decisions with those data, how to send feedback, how to develop within your own firm and make sure that within all the information that you are gathering as a data person or as an M&E person, also keep in mind that no harm is committed within those particular areas. So whilst we conducted this camp, some of the challenges that we came across that some of these new technologies or some of these developers are facing is about designing for use. You know, we all know that designing for use, it's the principal focus refers to the importance of how engaging through conversation, observation, and co-creation that those who use it and also this solution are also engaged in the creation of these solutions. These are some of the challenges that we came across. We also came across the understanding of the term ecosystem. We all understand that the understanding of ecosystem is critical for ensuring that an initiative or solution is designed within its context. You know, we are all from Africa. I know some of us are from diasporas and all those things. But developing a solution within the context at which the solution is going to be used go the long way to make an impact within those who are going to end up using this technology. So we also came across the understanding of the ecosystem also helped within those who are developing the technology and those who are going to go on to use the technology. We also came across issues of designing for scale. You know, funding is one of the difficult issue, even poor infrastructural development within some of these countries and within the African continent is also limiting the challenges of how to develop some of these technology and scale them just beyond the prototype level to the advanced level, or even to disseminate the use of this technology. We've seen the poor power. That was why I made reference to how much the African Development Bank deemed to be fit within some particular year to make that investment. So another challenges we came across was the building for sustainability. We also noticed that the capacity to pay a digital solution is highly constrained. And also the lack of funding. Sustainable funding is lacking because some of those funding are tied to some other restrictions or requirements, which some of these new developers can be innovative or can create solutions that are meant for the African continent. So that is one of the challenges we came across. We also saw issues about being data-driven. We know that some of the challenges is how to measure impact and insufficient time Time is also tied with funding because the donor gives you funding and gives you a timeline to be able to use that funding or to be able to deliver. And some of these challenges were some of the issues that we came across. Also, in the area of open source and standards, because of financial challenges, we noticed that some of these technologies that we initially started as open source are moving to closed source so that they can be able to sell it out, make money, and develop or advance or improve on what they've already developed. So we came across quite a few open source technology, but others are just normal standard one, which is closed one that people have to subscribe to it before they will have access to use it. So continue with the challenges. So the reuse and also improvement of some of these was also the lacking. As I said earlier on, finance is one of the major issues that we saw that is hindering the improvement of the use of some of these MERL tech, and also issues about privacy and security. You know, currently in the US government is banning TikTok. It's within the government institution, they ban TikTok because they notice that data that are being collected are sent to China. So that has been an issue. So we ask ourselves, when we use technology that are developed in Africa, or we are using technology to gather data on our field, where are those data stored? Where are those data stored for years? Or how do those who gave out the data have access to those data when they want them? So issues about privacy and security are some of the important issues that we came across. Even though these are very important issues, but they weren't mentioned much in the information that we gather on the field. Also being collaborative in terms of needing partners and all those has been challenging. Some of the countries have had a very good atmosphere of attracting a lot of partners. For example, South Africa, Nigeria, and other countries have attracted a lot of partners to be able to come in and give in more money to be able to develop this ecosystem. So the lessons that we learned at the end of this scan was that technology affects a large shape and by social and technological structure, which underpin the development within every area that we see are faster. So it's very, very important that we also take a look at how technology is shaping our world. And we also came across issue about power dynamics. Power dynamics is very important because it's inherent in conducting MERL. Because, for example, if your stakeholders is not in improvement of the use of that technology to gather data, there is a challenge over there. And if your stakeholder insists that use this particular technology to gather data, it's also an issue. I saw someone joining from Tier Fund. I remember we evaluated Tier Fund system. The system was used to give out funding, monitor some of their projects, monitor how they do so. That system is based in the UK, but all those Tier Fund staff that are based in country level across the African countries where Tier Fund has operation, some of these technologies are used, some of these informations are fed into that system that goes to the head office in UK. So we evaluated how this technology is used. That was 2020 that I did that evaluation with a colleague. So also about tech optimism should be tempered with a bit of appreciation of social reality and grounded in real problems, because we've seen that some technology within the African continent, some of the issues that we see on the ground don't allow those technologies to function properly. So whilst we are engaging and bringing in this new technology, we also keep in mind that some of the people, the users of this technology, also have to have the better atmosphere to be able to apply this technology, or you who is going to gather the data to be able to also apply the technology and keep all these information in mind. So my important issue is that what next for all of us as we've joined this call today, as M&E practitioners working in the field, working in the head offices, working in our various offices, and also those who are independent, working from homes and the rest. What is in it for us? And also, how can we improve on our own capacity for responsible data management to ensure that we avoid doing harm with data? And the third point I wanted to raise is that how can we play a role in improving data governance practice as an institution? I saw a lot of institutions staff join online today, and also both as employee of these institutions and as our role as a consultant and external evaluators. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John, for that lovely presentation. And we see that we really kept into the time. And our excitement to have you as one of the speakers really came to reality as you delivered the presentation. And I would also like to acknowledge those who just recently joined, the late joiners. We just had our presentation on trends in the African MERL tech scan by John, and now we're going to move into the discussions that we're going to have in the breakout rooms. I do acknowledge the questions that are on the comments. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hand over to Musa to give us guidance on how we're going to go about in the breakout discussions, and then after that, with the discussions and some of the things that might come up in those discussions, then we collaborate those for the Q&A for John. So that will be the process. All good, John, with that? Okay, awesome. Musa, over to you then with guidance on how you're going to go about with the breakout rooms.
Thank you, Noluthando, and thank you, John, for the wonderful presentation. Noluthando, if it's okay, could I ask that we do take a question or two? I am recruiting some breakout room facilitators, and maybe now is a good chance to ask for that. In the breakout rooms, what we're hoping to be able to do is discuss some of what John has spoken about and what Viwe has shared. We know that, SAMEA is a VOPI. It is an organization of volunteers. And there's a saying I like, I think it's by a lady, she's a founder of a charity organization. I forget her name now, but she says volunteers are the spine of an organization. So people like Asgard, Tikwiza, we are so grateful, Mala and Gano who hold the ship together, but volunteers are the soul of the organization. And Linda, for example, who started MERL, and has been running with it for as long as she has, we thank you for setting up this platform. But to everybody who's here, I like to think of everyone who attends a webinar also as a volunteer in their own respect, whether it's in showing up to here and take the knowledge wherever you're coming from, or even engaging here and forming partnerships. And that's what we're trying to do with the breakout rooms today. We're hoping that, number one, you will have a chance to collaborate, to get to know one another, identify possible partnerships, but also number two, speak to what we've just heard about the layout of MERL tech, particularly in our region, and contribute your voice to what direction the tech-enabled MERL CoP should take moving forward. We cannot do this alone. One of the responses that came from the survey was that we don't want the regular structured meetings. Naturally, if you're joining a tech CoP, I think you probably really don't enjoy those. So here's a chance to engage. If you would like to volunteer to facilitate, please send me a DM. Noluthando, I'll hand over to you for 5 minutes of questions, please, if that's okay.
Perfect. Awesome. So there is one question here. Let me just navigate to the chat quickly by meaning to. I am hoping that I'm saying the name correctly. So this is the question, John, in terms of these new and emerging technologies and opportunities and aspects that are likely to arise and address some of the existing challenges. Have you considered the digital divide that is likely to exist and is most likely to exacerbate inequality? In your opinion, how can this be dealt with?
Okay, so thank you very much for this insightful question. So what I can say is that in terms of the emerging technology and opportunities, there's a lot that is emerging currently. Last week or so, I had an email chat with Linda, and she's working on natural language, machine learning. And also we have a lot of artificial intelligence technology that are also emerging. We have drones and we have satellites that are within the African continent, and also a lot of countries that the youth are going deeply into it. So looking at the likelihood that there is a sense of inequality, what we can do is that there's the need of a lot of research to see the connection between this technology and race and also ethnicity within the guards, so that those who are going to develop this technology can put in place some of these findings from our research to be able to say that, okay, within this particular community, this is how these individuals interact. So when we are developing technology for this particular community, we have to inculcate some of these issues in there so that the technology will be developed in context of that, so that it will be able to solve the issues of inequality within the use of some of those technologies. And also based on the type of funding constraint that comes around. When you're going in for funding to develop a technology, it's also important to keep in mind that you are going to develop a technology that is going to solve problems. So try to go in for funding that will be able to align to that goals that you want to develop the technology for, so that you will not be restricted in the way you are applying the technology or the funding to develop that technology within your field.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John, for answering that. And I do hope that many of you feel answered on that. Then there's another question, appreciating the presentation, and then could you please share more light on the indigenous knowledge that emerged from the studies, particularly with respect to deploying MERL tech? Is it that? Oh, sorry. Just, yeah, MERL tech practice, MERL practices. You're on mute, John.
Yeah, thank you. So what we find out through this research was that, you know, within the African continent, there's a lot of countries that, for example, one technology that we came across in Nigeria, the lady, it was being run by a lady, the firm was being run by a lady. What she said was that when she was growing up, if someone is at the farm and the others is at the opposite farm, they can just make a certain noise and each one of them will know that, okay, I'm in need of your attention, so you have to come over. So they came in and developed a technology that will be able to sense out this particular noise and also be able to administer it. There was also a technology that we came across that in a way when babies cry back home or in Africa, mothers can be able to sense the need of what the baby wants. So there was a technology that was developed to capture the anomalies that babies feel when they cry, so that their mind, or if there's a sickness or any diseases that wants to come out in the baby, quickly they'll be able to detect that and administer the best medication. So these are some of the indigenous knowledge and how they are using it to develop technology. But there aren't enough or a lot of them that we came across. It was quite surprising that those technologies that use indigenous knowledge are very much, even though there's a lot of indigenous knowledge that can be used to translate into development of this technology to solve a lot of issues within the African continent. So these are some of the issues that as MERL practitioners, what are we doing to solve some of these problems?
Awesome. Thank you, John, and thank you for those questions. Motsa, are we ready to proceed to the next one? You are also more than welcome.
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Should there be any other comments or questions, you're more than welcome to continue to drop them in the chat. And then when we do the reflections and discussion, then we'll see if we can slot them in to address them. Thank you, Motsa. Over to you.
Thanks, Nalatando. Okay, so everybody has been assigned to a breakout room, and thank you to everybody who's generously offered to facilitate. The facilitators will be taking notes. As you'll see, they'll be able to share their screen and take your contributions. The breakout rooms will run for 30 minutes. It's a lightning exercise, and feel free to have all your mics on. They're not too big, so it should be okay for all of you to talk together. And when we come back, the facilitators will share key insights from each room. I'll open the rooms now. And please do not drop off the call. We really, really value your voice, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, you should have a notification asking you to join a room. See you all in 30 minutes. Okay, Ayanda. Ayanda, no Lutando. I am having a scrambled brain today. I'm gonna move on into room 7. I think that gives you rights to assign anyone who joins while I'm gone.
Okay.
I remember correctly, or if I just get the notification, I'll do it from in there.
Yeah, it looks like I can.
Okay, cool. See you soon.
Awesome.
The need for consistently muting and unmuting. So if we could all just unmute our mics, and please feel free to kind of talk and add in whenever there's something that you wish to say or just have any contributions. Okay, so we'll start off with, okay, no mics have been unmuted yet. I'm going to give everybody a second just to get around to doing that. Thank you. Okay, so I'll start off with the first question. So basically, I'd like to understand what has the most influence over your reason for joining this CoP. I'm sure that for some of us, maybe we have answered the survey questions already, but I'd just like to hear in this context that we're in. So essentially what's meant to happen here is that you can see that there are these black boxes that have different reasons for why anyone might have joined the CoP. So what we're going to do is that on the basis of how popular each box or each reason is, we will give it a rating using the stars. So obviously the maximum in this case will be 5 stars, and then there'll be some that have no stars whatsoever. So we will talk about it. We will decide which ones are which box is the most popular reason for people deciding to join and which boxes are least popular. So that's the reason behind unmuting mics, just so that we don't have to go through the whole process of raising hands. You're able to speak whenever you have an input or whenever you have something to share. So please feel free to do that. So I think, yeah, first question, what has the most
Engagement, everybody. I see that our facilitators are here and ready and smiling, so that's a good sign. Shall we kick off with room 1? The feedback is just 2 to 3 minutes. Key things that were said in your group. And in room 1, I think we had Miriam. Are you here, Miriam? Hope we haven't lost you. Yes, okay, but we can't hear you. Okay. Give me a moment.
Great. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself there.
No problem. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, yes, so we started with the first block of reasons for joining the CoP, and our winning reason, or the most voiced reason, was MERL career advancement. So we had 4 votes there, and which was followed by 2 votes each for tech is the future and data innovators is pretty cool. And the least voted were networking, collaboration, and we had an extra one of just interested in learning about MERL tech in general. And then for the themes, we came up with 4 themes. And the first theme was a data science that informs MERL processes. So we want to have a theme on where we can learn about data science that informs MERL processes. And also there was an expressed interest in wanting to learn about tech that is more Afrocentric. And also the third theme was wanting to learn about visibility of technology for those that are new and upcoming in the MEL field. So what's accessible to them and how can they get into the MEL tech skill. And then the fourth one is the MEL driving organization. So how can organizations be driven to innovation by using any MEL processes that they do in their organization? And then the third box, we explored 3 key tools that we want to explore. The first one's CoP toolbox. I think someone mentioned that there are many useful functions there for data collection as a tool to use and explore. And then we've got for data analysis, the express tools there were Python and R. And then the third one was Power BI. And lastly, in terms of formats for engagement, the winning one for us was Teams, which was an extra one. And the reason for that was that many organizations use it. And also it's embedded in the organizational structures and processes. So it's just accessible and easy to navigate instead of having to use any other extra things such as Slack and WhatsApp. So yes, that was our feedback from the group.
That's great. Thank you so much, Miriam. I love all the extras that came out of there. Sounds like it was a good session. I'm going to hand over to, I should mention Miriam is from Southern Hemisphere, so thank you for also being here to represent your organization. Room 2, we have Letitia, who was facilitating. Letitia joins us from Kulisa. Please go ahead, Leticia. Leticia? Okay, oops, your mic. Okay.
Okay, there you go. Now you can hear me. Perfect pronunciation, Witsa. Hi, everyone. So yes, our group was really good. We've stuck to time in all of the questions. For question number 1, we selected, we put a lot of stars on the networking and collaboration, and a lot of stars on another, which is also related to network and collaboration. And it was about, well, I'm here to get to know what other people are doing, in the field, which links back to how can we collaborate better, right? Then not duplicate efforts and things like that. there was also a general understanding that tech is the future and tech is fun anyway. Everyone is working with tech, and also a way to get involved with SAMEA. Then when we went to discuss the themes that people wanted to cover, similar to what Miriam said, there was a sense of how can tech be used to empower communities in empowerment evaluation, for example, or anything related to indigenous knowledge and the use of tech in M&E, for example. So those two are closely related. Then something about understanding a bit more about the use of software and technology on how M&E has been done over the years. So almost like an evolution of M&E and technology over the years. Then what data platforms people are using, just generally wanting to know about that. And some data viz. So how do we communicate data? And what software can be used to do that? That's linked to question number 3 related to the tools. So we want to know what tools we can use to visualize data, want to learn more about Tableau, for example. How do we use that better to analyze and visualize data? Power BI, even going back to basics like Excel. It's also a good thing. Maybe exploring Salesforce, Comcare, Kobo Collect and Kobo Toolbox also came up. And SurveyMonkey. And qualitative data analysis tools. I know everyone is raving about ChatGPT, so threw that in there as a way to, summarize data, qualitative data, do literature reviews, analyze interview transcripts, things like that. And then when it came to forms of engagement, we were keen on Slack. Everyone is overwhelmed with all of the WhatsApp groups that we have to manage, so no WhatsApp, please. Slack. Really keen on sessions like this, so like the learning labs that we can actually get together and talk. That received the most stars, and definitely like having a space that's like a platform, like the blog, with knowledge management, where you can go access all the materials. If you missed something from a previous session, you can go in there and find it. That would also be really cool. And email as well, just as a way of like, hey, there's a new post on the blog. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Leticia, and thanks to everybody who was in your room. Those are useful insights. We had Aiso from FEI Systems in room 3. Aiso, I can't find you. Can you switch on your camera and then I might see you quicker? There we go. Okay, great. Super. Thanks, Aiso. Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, my camera is on the docking station to the side, but let me just get into it. So for us, it was mostly around tech as well. Tech is the future, which is also the byproduct for that is always going to be career advancement, right? And then similarly, in the same subset, tech is fun as well, and then networking and collaboration. So those were the 4 key areas. And then in terms of themes that we would like to cover, it was also around M&E in improving tech. Nonetheless, there's also, we know that there's Agile for monitoring and probably reviewing a tech product to see that it's improving or how it can improve. We also felt that maybe there could be ways of implementing M&E and improving tech that we can discuss. Other areas of interest include data security, safety for tech, and then inclusive approaches for sharing findings through tech. And then we spoke about tech toolkits to say, there's a lot of information out there and a lot of it is not necessarily helpful towards what you may want to implement around tech. What if we could just build tech toolkits that will allow you to get started as early as possible with a given tech platform that one may be introduced to. The 5th item that we would like to cover as a theme would be critical frameworks for assessing tech to be utilized for MERL, right? And then what tools would we like to explore? It was mostly around AI for MERL, and then we have remote sensing for MERL, and also open data management platforms together with predictive analytics. And then when it comes to formats of engagement, which was the fourth box, we spoke about Slack as one thing of interest. We spoke about Zoom, email, and the hybrid e-learning labs. But it was also an issue of that those engagements on those platforms shouldn't be overwhelming. Say, for example, your inbox gets bombarded by some of these communication, then it becomes overwhelming. Then there was one missing thing that we felt that would be also helpful as well around engagement, which was the issue of podcasts, because it's an efficient way of disseminating information and people can always multitask while they listen to a podcast. So that's what we came up with. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Aiso. I was interested to hear tech toolkits. I'm one of those people who I quickly forget who helped me or what helped me once I'm going. And yeah, it's really important to pass it on, as we say. We had in room 4, Lihle Chabalala from Textured People. Lihle, over to you.
Thank you, Musa. So in our team, we had quite a nice, diverse team. But one of the interesting things is that one of our team members, Bruce, is a technology person who is recently introduced to MERL. So that was particularly interesting because Bruce mentioned one thing about monitoring evaluation as an industry or as a discipline being very academic. So one of the things that he wants to really have us think about is how somebody who comes from tech can integrate their learnings or their knowledge into this seemingly very academic space and kind of simplify the processes and the ways of monitoring and evaluation to make space for tech. So not the other way around, because I find that we tend to, it's monitoring and evaluation first, and what do we take from tech to kind of feed into that? So that I thought was very interesting from that. And in terms of the different questions, the first one, we had, the first interesting one was that tech is the future, what got 3 stars, and similar to the group that just presented, the byproduct of that was career advancement. So again, to use Bruce as an example, he wants to venture into a different space outside of pure tech and learning MERL, and MERL tech specifically is then a good move for him. And then quite a few of our team members were introduced to MERL tech or this CoP specifically through SAMEA, the conference last year. So that got 2 stars. And then another 3 stars went to data innovators. Is pretty cool. So my boss made me do it, didn't come up, and collaboration didn't come up. I think the collaboration part almost goes without saying in that, you know, this is exactly what we're doing, being here. So it felt like it went without saying. In terms of question 2, we spoke about, initially we had 4, and then we went back and found the last theme. The themes that came up as people would like to cover are AI, using AI for data analysis, also being natural language processing. The second one, technologies in impact on society. Our team member Vava was very passionate about this, to say it's all well and good for us to have technology, but what about its impact on society? So not only talking about, you know, evaluating societies using technology, but what does having these tools and having this technology, what does it do to our different communities? The third one, we had a member, I forgot his surname, but I kept referring him, please forgive me, I forgot your surname. Mashala is his name, I remember his first name. Spoke about strengthening MERL tech in the public sector. So what he spoke about was the fact that in education specifically, there are tools, there are processes, but they aren't used as much. So he'd be very interested for the CoP to spend a bit of time thinking about ways to strengthen MERL tech in the public sector. The fourth theme was using technology for inclusivity, which John spoke about in his presentation, but we ventilated on a little bit as well, bridging the digital divide. And the last one for me, that was the one that I contributed because I've been reading quite a few articles on this, is around research, technology, and ethics. I think that's going to be very big, especially with the rise of AI, with the rise of natural language processing and everything. The ethics of everything is going to very much remain a challenge or something that we have ongoing discussions on. Regarding what tools we'd like to explore, we didn't have names, but we had areas that we'd like to explore in terms of MERL tech. And one of them is live data repositories. And by live, a colleague defined live as being repositories that are updated. We found that there's quite a few repositories that are available out there, but they are not updated. And then open source tools, the Internet of Things, and collaboration tools, open source collaboration tools for MERL, the other interesting tools that people wanted to explore. And in terms of engagement platforms, the learning labs were the ones that people liked the most. Slack, quite a few of us didn't know what it was, but when we had a discussion about what it was seen to be an interesting way of plugging in. And then WhatsApp got 2 stars, but for emergencies. So again, totally agree with not being bombarded and having too many groups, but being able to have that platform for when you have emergencies and you want to, you're working on something and like to get advice from colleagues. And then blogs, again, as a way of being repositories for special interests. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you didn't catch it before, Lise is from an organization called Textured People, as you can probably tell. Thanks for that great synopsis, Lise. Our next room, room 5, was being facilitated by Olamide Adeyeye, who volunteered on the spot. Thank you very much. I'll just make a note here to say that we are running out of time. So for the remaining facilitators, I'm going to ask you to just give key insights and, if anything has been said already, don't worry about repeating it. Thanks very much. Over to you, Olamide.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So I'll make it very quick. I think many of the things that have been said resonates with what we also discussed in our group. So career advancement and networking collaboration came up as the major reason. Again, very interesting to know that no one was forced to join by their boss or manager or whatever. So everyone came in as a matter of intrinsic motivation, as it were. So in terms of the things we like to cover, similar to many of the things that have been mentioned, just in addition to that is also seeing how we can also work on community-based technologies that are very context relatable, as well as more that accommodates the realities of the rural and remote communities in different parts of Africa. In terms of the tools, we largely thought about the tools again with relation to data collection, and I think many of the tools that we spoke about the ODK tools, and I think one thing that just came up as well as a valued tool, it may not look like technology as it were, but it's paper, and paper is still very valid in many. Yes, we know that there are climate concerns and all, but in being context responsive, we see that it is still something that is still very much used. In terms of formats of engagement, similar to many of the groups, we also agree that the labs the learning labs are quite important. And I think maybe the only thing that is more like an outlier for us here is WhatsApp was also considered as a very good means of engagement. definitely putting into place all the other measures that we've spoken about. But we saw WhatsApp as, that medium of easily, latching onto someone's expertise, sliding into someone's DM, and just being able to collaborate in real time, rather than the back and forth that happens with emails and the tons of emails that some of us already get from multiple platforms. So for us, really, the mode of engagement would be what the use would be. So if it's for learning, definitely the interactive hybrid learning model, the Zoom is great. In terms of information and articles, yes, emails are good. But in terms of just networking and collaboration, which came up as one of the major reasons why we all participated in this call in the first place, we feel WhatsApp could be, that good platform to at least exchange contacts and interact. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Olamide. Clearly, the white elephant take is still at play, and where needed. Sometimes it just is what works. But Bruce, welcome to MERL. We're happy to have you and your take. You're most welcome. Tina was in room 6, so she'll be giving us their feedback. Over to you, Tina.
All right, so our group, in terms of what has the most influence, there was a lot of, in terms of new additions around personal development. There was also another reason for joining this CoP is to understand more about evidence-based planning and M&E systems, and also further understanding of MERL, and same as everyone, career advancement and tech being the future. The themes that came out, the group went far and beyond, and we came up with 6. The first one was data being an asset. Another one, benefits of M&E across government planning, across government for planning purposes and priorities as well. And there was also a need, another theme, a need for M&E basics, such as doing virtual data collection and management, especially in the context of South Africa, where we have load shedding and you can't do a Teams focus group. And then another one is to explore existing data tools and basics, which also would, existing data tools and basics. And there was quite a focus on understanding the difference between tools and instruments, especially for people that are new in M&E. Also, responsible evaluation was mentioned as in the context of intersectionality, so race, gender, class, and so on and so forth, intersectionality and data. And finally, knowledge sharing through panelists on methodologies, for instance, would be greatly appreciated. Tools that the group said that they would like to be explored was Power BI, Excel, Chat GPT, which I'm still not, yes, that one, because it's so new and it's also making waves. So people would like to understand it a bit more. Corbo also came out. And finally, Write Out and Otter AI as transcription tools. They came out as well, that those would like to be explored. I'm not sure where everyone else found the time to do all 4, but we didn't get to the 4th box.
I hope that means you had a good time, though.
Yes.
Thank you, Tina. Thanks so much for that. We have our next presentation from Ayanda, who's here representing Data Innovators. Thank you for all your resources that you have put into forming this CoP. We're really glad to have you here today. Over to you. Sorry, I think there we go.
Yeah, so dealing with the mute and unmute. Thank you very much. I think on our side, I'll just add what emerged. So on the other, I think there was also the need to use a space to explore tools that can save time, but also to use a space to contribute knowledge and practices that colleagues would find valuable. So that was also a motivation that people had for being in the space as they engage and learn. And then in terms of like topics that colleagues were keen to engage on, I think in relation to the tools themselves, colleagues were keen to find cost-effective solutions that are almost like close to being free, so that they can also find them accessible for their own needs. So it's about, you know, using the space to identify what other colleagues are using and can be cost effective. And also, I think colleagues are really keen to see things being demonstrated. So in the sense that they'd like to know how tools are adding value practically and how colleagues are using tools in practice in order for them to know how to best maximize or leverage them for their context. So there was a keenness for demonstration. And also topically is around navigating some of the things that our colleagues have mentioned earlier on, which speaks to the digital divide, speaks to exclusion, biases that may be inherent in the data or the tools that are being used. So it's navigating some of those things. With regards to tools, I think on our side, I think the different tools have been captured, but we spoke to them more from a use case perspective. I think the one that I'll mention, which kind of does align somewhat with the natural language processing, which is really around having, you know, tools that help deal with some of the admin that colleagues are dealing with to reduce the time people are spending processing particular data that may be paper-based or in some formats that then needs to be processed and be used. So it's about how that can be, you know, processed efficiently, but made more accessible. I'm going to pause with that around the additional stuff, but otherwise everything else was aligned with what colleagues are saying. So once again, it's good to be here.
Thank you. That was definitely the strategy room. It's nice to hear people picking out functionalities that they want as opposed to, you know, naming what exists already, because if you know what the problem is, like Sean was saying in our room, then you know what to put to it, right, in terms of tech. So thank you for that, Ayanda. We have Amanda Mube, also from Data Innovators, also very largely responsible for this day that we are having. Amanda, over to you.
Thank you, Musa. I will say that a lot of what our group mentioned is very similar to what's already been mentioned. I think just to cover that in the theme specifically, there was an ask to look into the application of MERL tech in the education space. And another ask was around the intersection of indigenous practices and MERL tech. And then in terms of tools, I think it's mostly the same tools that have already been mentioned. There was a discussion around how, seeing as ChatGPT seems to be the predominantly language-based AI that's being looked at, maybe we could also look into a couple of AI image analysis tools. So I think that was an interesting one. And then in terms of formats, we did have two specific ones that most people seem to be leaning forward. So there was email and then there was WhatsApp. So I know that for most groups that wasn't a great option, but I think the one thing that did stand out to me was the mention of the new feature in WhatsApp, which is WhatsApp communities. So I know we're anti-WhatsApp, but yeah, that was interesting. And I suppose, you know, something to think about. Thank you.
Also something region specific. That's great, Amanda. Thank you. There's your intersection of indigenous practices and MERL tech in action. In our room, I hosted the last room with Munashe, who's from data, and Vuyelwa, who's in government dealing with human rights, and Sean, who's in open source software. So we had a variety of responses, but one thing that we ended off on actually was social impact assessment, both the theory aspect and also in terms of tools, kind of marrying people who know about the tech and people who know about the theory. And it sounds like, just from the scope of people in this room and what was presented, that, there's a lot of opportunity for that, marrying the different experiences and capacities that we have. I don't know if you would like to respond, John, to any of what you've heard for just a minute or two, and then we'll hand back over to Nolutando. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you all for the insightful thought during the break room sections. Yeah, so I picked quite very interesting information. So what I can add is that back to the question that I asked, that what does all this mean for ME practitioners? In our section, I quite noticed that there were some that are coming into the field now. So what it means is that we have to be proactive, open to learning new things that are emerging within the field of tech, which we are inculcating or embedding within the ME sector. And also we should take privacy issues very paramount, because when you're using technology to gather data, privacy issues should be one of the issues that should be on your topmost agenda, and also ensure that some of the information that you are gathering wouldn't cause harm to those who are providing those information to you. Because if that happens, it means that when else you go in there to gather data, it will be difficult for you to build that trust and gather enough information. So these are some of the issues that I would think. And also collaborating is very important as we develop and move from one field to the other. And collaboration is very important to ensure that we keep growing and build on what we've already learned. So thank you all for today's session.
Thank you, John, and thank you for your wonderful presentation. You know, as you mentioned, collaborating, I'm thinking about ChatGPT and how often that came up. Linda and the MERL Tech community, MERL Center community, MERL Tech is now a part of MERL Center, but MERL Tech is the mother of MERL Center, and they have an NLP group that has just formed. It's a working group that formed kind of organically, and then comes ChatGPT. So they're already having webinars and events around that and how to use it effectively and responsibly within MERL. So I know that they do post on SAMEA Talk. Look out for those opportunities when they do come up if you're interested in that, or if you do a lot of qualitative work. And with that, I'll hand over to Nolutando. Thank you for the wonderful session, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the lively discussions we simply have had in the breakout rooms. And our next session will be on the 23rd of June. And in terms of the topic, we have not yet decided. And as it was stated that we want this work to be as collaborative as possible. So with the feedback that you provided in the breakout sessions as well as the survey, then we'll use that to guide us as to what will be the next topic. Otherwise, I really appreciate your presence as well as your participation for this for this session. And then the communication will come up in the later stage in terms of the details of the next session, but it will definitely go on the 23rd of June. So thank you, everybody. Have a lovely weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.